brothers and sisters. This is Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, joining me today is also a very dear friend of mine. She co-hosts with me on the Catholic View for Women. She also has an amazing radio show every day, Monday through Friday, called The Catholic Connection. But she also has another show on a very important outlet called Ave Maria Radio. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because they are celebrating 25 years. So welcome to the program, Teresa Tomeo.
Hi, JM. Great to be here. Thank you so much. At Ave Maria Radio, 25 years on the air, and my show has been broadcast now for 19 years. This November, actually, I'll be celebrating 19 years of Catholic Connection on Ave Maria Radio, and also we're syndicated, as you mentioned, on EWTN. So it's just been awesome. Right. I can't believe it's been 19 years, and I can't believe we've been on the air. We're one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Catholic radio stations out there.
Wow. So tell us about the history. I know Al Crest has been a key player in Ave Maria in the early days. But tell us, let's take us back 25 years ago. How did Ave Maria Radio get started?
Sure. Well, it actually started, Al, as you know, is a revert to Catholicism. He was working in evangelical radio for a few years and was coming back to the church. And when he came back to the church, Tom Monahan approached him, who is a wonderful Catholic philanthropist and the founder of Legatus and Ave Maria University. He had Domino's Farms, which is still his property in southeastern Michigan, where we're based. And he has done so many wonderful things for the community, and especially for the Catholic faith. And he wanted to get involved in media because back then, Mother Angelica had been on the air for about 15 years. He was very interested in her work, and she was starting to go into the area of radio, and he wanted to be a part of that. So he approached Al because, obviously, being a convert and Al's experience in communications, brought Al over to Domino's Farms in southeastern Michigan in Ann Arbor, and they started not only Ave Maria Radio, but also a Catholic magazine, which is no longer in existence, but it was called Credo, which of course means truth in Latin. And then one thing led to another. And Al and I had met through a Christian media fellowship group. I had left the secular media in the year 2000, was hired by the same evangelical station where he worked. I worked there for 2 years. And at the end of those 2 years, he said to me, you know what, we'd love to bring you on as a Catholic talk show host. And that's when Catholic Connection started. And it started, as I said, in November of 2019, and let's see, this is 21, so 2002, we began the program. And then a few years later, both Crest in the afternoon and Catholic Connection were picked up by EWTN and syndicated. So it's been an amazing journey for me, and I just can't figure out the math because I've been on the air at Ave Maria for 19 years. I was in the secular media for 20, and yet I'm only 29. I can't somehow, figure out the math, but bottom line is I can't believe it's gone by so fast. It's been great, and God willing, it will continue.
Right. And, people don't realize, Teresa, maybe you start at 8 o'clock every morning, go to 10, but 8 to 9, you always refer to that as the local hour.
Right.
So people in Michigan hear it. But from what I understand, over the years now, Ave Maria Radio has expanded. It's not just Michigan, right? Hasn't that local, what you call the local hour, 8 to 9, really has expanded? How has it done so?
Well, it's so interesting because of the way you can listen to radio now, which 20 years ago we didn't have. But thanks to the internet, there's so many ways. And we're not in, let's say, Nielsen or Arbitron, which are your typical ratings systems, because we're not large enough. Catholic radio is still a niche market, but we do consider our membership drives, which we have twice a year, kind of our ratings. And so we get an idea. We ask people when they call in to make their donation, either through AveMariaRadio.net or a phone number we give out twice a year during our pledge drive. So please let us know how you listen and where you're from. And inevitably, every time we have a membership drive, JM, we now have every single state of the union represented. People are either listening on the Ave Maria Radio app, which you can download on your phone. They're listening on iPads. They're listening on obviously just maybe a laptop, like I'm reaching you right now. And so that listenership has grown through the internet to every single state in the union, which we document every time we have a membership drive, and we keep reaffirming that. And then also we know we have increased listeners that listen to Ave Maria Radio around the world. I hear from Judith, for example, who's very involved in the pro-life movement in London. She writes me. I have a friend, Tony, who writes me from Australia. We know we have listeners underground in China. So it's kind of somewhat not really accurate to say it's only a local hour. Now, what we try to do in that first hour of the program is, because we're in Michigan and we cover the Diocese of Toledo, we cover the Diocese of Lansing, and we also cover, obviously, the big Archdiocese of Detroit. So we do try to give our Michigan listeners and Ohio listeners some of those local things, but I'm covering more and more national and international topics in that very first hour, as well as giving people both Michigan weather and national weather, because there's so many people listening across the country and around the world.
And then how did it work out? How did Al kind of get the attention of EWTN to have your program, Catholic Connection, and Al Crest's program, Crest in the afternoon? How did that work out where suddenly now, wow, EWTN is taking and pumping out those two programs?
Well, I think it was a matter of both need and interest. First of all of us were growing, and we were looking to expand, and EWTN was looking to bring on some solid shows. But because we're in Catholic media, obviously our resources are limited. We subsist on funds from listeners. We have some underwriters at Ave Maria Radio, but that's very limited, very small amount, and those people have to be, extremely Catholic, and we vet them all the time. So people sometimes will make a donation, and then in response, we will, give them some airtime. It's a very legal thing that we do. We're able to do that, but it really was the fact that EWTN was looking to expand its radio programming without having to hire, a ton more people. Because when you have a radio show, as you well know, you have to have a producer, you have to have somebody running the audio board, you have to have an on-air host. And so Ave Maria already had that going. And so it was very easy. And they obviously monitored our shows to make sure we were authentically Catholic. And they knew both me and Al through our other work in the Catholic faith in terms of our speaking, our apologetics, and our writing. And so they said, we think this is a good fit. So EWTN was looking for programs to fill in the slot. And so now we have a combination where actually my show, Catholic Connection and Crest in the Afternoon, are co-produced by Ave Maria and EWTN. And then EWTN also has some of its own shows. But Ave Maria Radio has quite a few shows that we are very involved in that are on the EWTN network. It's a great family. We're part of the EWTN family. And we're so excited because in addition to us at Ave Maria celebrating 25 years, EWTN has also just celebrated 40 years of broadcasting, which is amazing.
It's amazing what one nun did, Mother Angelica.
Amen.
It's amazing, absolutely amazing. She actually did what the bishops couldn't do. If you remember back then, there were so many dioceses trying to have their own cable or something thing, and here this cloistered nun showed them all, didn't she?
She did. With this feisty, I always like to say my Calabrese sister, because her family was from the same area where my father's family was from, southern Italy in Calabria. And Rita Rizzo was her name, right? And Mother Angelica, poor Claire, we just marked not too long ago the feast of St. Clare of Assisi. And St. Clare, appropriately, of course, the patron saint of television and a very big communication saint. So Mother Angelica, an amazing witness for us all. She always used to say, faith is 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot in the air, and a queasy feeling in the stomach. And I think we could all agree with that.
And then for Ave Maria Radio throughout the day, when do they go on the air? Like how early in the morning? And I know you and Al have the two big anchor kind of shows, morning and afternoon. But what's the programming look throughout the day on Ave Maria Radio?
Right. Well, we also carry some of the EWTN shows. So, for example, the day usually starts, and we say this is Catholic Radio 24/7 for Catholics and other Christians. It's one of our mottos at Ave Maria Radio. So I would say the day really starts at 7 a.m. with the Sunrise Morning Show with Anna Mitchell and Matt Swaim, and that's co-produced by Sacred Heart Radio in Cincinnati and EWTN. And then Catholic Connection comes on at 8 o'clock Eastern time for that first hour. And my show runs until 10 a.m. Eastern, and the second hour is all over the EWTN network. Thanks be to God. That's such a gift. And then after that, we have a number of other EWTN programs that are carried. We have Father John Ricardo, Christ is the Answer. We have Peter Herbeck, Fire on the Earth. We have Sister Ann Shields that she helps us look at the Word of God. We have the Pop Checks, they have More to Life program helping us live our life, within the domestic church. We have Dr. Ray Grendy, The Doctor is In. And we have also carry open line with EWTN, and then we have Crest in the afternoon, Catholic Answers Live. It's an incredible lineup, and I just want to encourage people to go to both AveMariaRadio.net and EWTN.com for our programming schedules.
And of course, as Mother Angelica always said, you have to donate. Put even Ave Maria Radio between your gas and your electric
and
bill
your electric bill.
And they can donate, right, Teresa, right on the website, correct?
Yeah, let's go to AveMariaRadio.net. There are links there to both listen live and to donate. We have our programming schedule. We have links to EWTN. And being that we do have our 25th anniversary coming up, we're having a big celebration at the end of the month. And wonderful groups like yours, Priests for Life, is helping to underwrite that and subsidize us so we can bring people together. It's really fun. You can go and see the links to it. We're having, I don't know if you knew this, JM, but this is really fun. We're having a Dunk the Deacon tank on Saturday, August 28th. All this is going to be taking place. We're going to have videos on it. There's going to be all kinds of information people have to see afterwards. But we're having a Dunk the Deacon tank, and Deacon Dom has volunteered to get in his bathing suit and his T-shirt and to be dunked, all for the cause of Catholic radio.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a good sport he is. So, Teresa, why don't you tell everyone your journey a little bit? I mean, because you were a street reporter there, right?
Yeah.
And for the local news in Detroit. You were away from the Catholic Church. You were just, this was your career, you thought. What helped you make that transition from secular media into just be such a wonderful Catholic radio and TV host? Like, how did that all happen? Tell everybody.
Well, it wasn't anything I planned. It's like I didn't wake up one day while I was in the secular media making a ton of money and saying, ooh, I want to go into Catholic radio. Actually, quite the opposite. I had no idea Catholic radio existed. And I made the decision back many, many years ago, even prior to starting my own communications company and then starting at the evangelical station, as I mentioned, where I just couldn't do secular media anymore. Deacon Dom and I came back to the Catholic faith over a series of years. To make a long story short, as you know, we had a crisis in our marriage. We were both very successful professionally, but personally our lives were falling apart because we were putting all that emphasis on the material and the physical world and not on God. We pretty much left God at the altar after we got married in 1983. And, being that God wasn't at the center of the relationship, things fell apart. But God did come back into our lives. Dominic had his reversion first, and then I followed suit. And once I got back into my faith and I really started to study scripture and the teachings of the church, my eyes were open to the problems of the media. And it was really gut-wrenching for me because I never wanted to do anything else since the time I was a little girl. Some people have to go for years for whatever reason and find out what they wanted to do. But the Lord put it on my heart when I was in grade school, when I was 8 or 9 years old, that I would be in communications. And I've been in professional broadcasting for 40 years. I've been on the radio since I was 14 years old. My very first gig was at our little high school radio station in suburban Detroit. And I didn't want to go to the Catholic high school, not because I didn't want to further my Catholic education, but they didn't have a radio station. So I convinced my parents to let me go to the public school because they had a radio station and a newspaper. And I knew at that young age what I wanted to do. But when I made it to the very top of the secular media, there was such an emptiness. I had made my way back to the church at that time, and I was like, what is this? That old song that you and I remember growing up, what's it all about, Alfie? It's like, okay, what is this all about? Why is it that I'm at the epitome? I was working for one of the top ABC affiliates, JM, in Detroit, which is a major market, a top 10 market, a tough market. And I have blown through every single goal that I set. I achieved it. And I was having this profound reversion, and I'm thinking I'm going to be in the newsroom and I'm going to save everybody. I'm going to bring them back to the church or bring them into the church. But what was happening is I was realizing that my gifts and my talents as a secular journalist were not being used anymore. And I just felt so empty. And so for a good 2 or 3 years, I really struggled and then decided I have to walk away. So my last job in the secular media was as a news director at a big station, because I thought okay, well, I'll leave TV and go back into radio because that's where I first started, and radio would be a little bit easier. But it just didn't work. I wasn't happy. And so I walked away in 2000, and I just said, okay, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do, but whatever you want me to do is fine. And then within just a few weeks of saying that prayer, I got a call from the evangelical station. And then 2 years after that, was hired by Ave Maria Radio. And it's been, again, as I said, 19 years on the air.
Well, there's a funny story I know, Teresa. You just alluded to the fact that had this desire since you were in grade school. Isn't there a funny story about somebody some nun put a microphone in your
Oh
hand
yeah.
at a young age?
The nuns didn't know what to do with me, bless their hearts. I went to a wonderful Catholic school, which, as you know, is still my home parish, St. Joan of Arc in suburban Detroit. And I was always caught talking. I was always caught passing notes. I was a chatty Cathy. It was just, well, surprise, surprise. And so there was a Christmas play that was coming around, and they were looking for kids from each grade, especially the younger grades, to take part. And so they gave me a little part in this play, like 3 or 4 lines, this Christmas production. And they put the microphone in my hand, and I nailed it, they told me, and I just felt very comfortable. And I was, again, in the 3rd grade, wasn't nervous at all, thought it was fun. And that was my beginning of really being interested in broadcasting. And I have to say, we hear a lot of people complain about Catholic education, how it's not good enough, how they didn't learn. I had wonderful teachers, both lay and religious, and they taught me a lot. And I would say by the time I graduated from 8th grade, way back in 1973, I had a pretty good understanding. The problem is the pull of the world was much stronger, and we didn't have what we have in place now. We didn't have organizations like Students for Life or Priests for Life or Silent No More or Focus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students. We didn't have great Catholic Bible studies. We didn't have Catholic media back then, right? Except for maybe our diocesan papers and whatever newsletters or publications the various diocesan folks were putting out. There wasn't this plethora of great resources that we have now. So I was very quickly pulled away. But I have to give credit originally to those sisters and those lay teachers who recognized my gifts both for speaking and writing and encouraged me to do something with them.
Great. That's wonderful. And of course, your mother, God rest her soul, Rosie, she had to deal with a child, an incorrigible child that just would not be quiet, right?
That's right. That's right. It's a funny story about Rosie. I think you've heard this story many times because you know and loved her well. When she was reading about St. Teresa of Avila, you see St. Teresa all over my office right now behind me on to the left and to the right. She's my favorite. I was named after her. My mother didn't really know all that much about her, JM. She just really wanted to name me Teresa, and she wanted something that was more Mediterranean. We're Italian. And even though St. Teresa is well known for her Spanish roots, the Teresa without the H is much more Italian and Mediterranean and Spanish, of course. And one day I brought home a book about the saints from Catholic school, and my mom picked it up and she started reading it, and she's looking at it, and she's looking at me, and she's looking down at St. Teresa, and she's reading about how St. Teresa of Avila always got into trouble because she was a chatty Cathy. She ran away from home, wanted to be a martyr. Her and her cousin, got stopped by their uncle on their way out of Avila because they wanted to be a martyr for the faith. She was doing all kinds of crazy things as a kid. And then even as she was growing up and became obviously the great reformer of the Carmelite order, she was known for her feistiness and her outgoingness. And so my mom is looking at this and she's saying in her Jersey accent, my family's originally from the East Coast, my mother never lost her accent. She says, it's providential I named you after her. Go figure. And so, yeah, the name Teresa, I really think is another coincidence in my life.
Amazing, amazing. So tell us, how is Al Crest doing these days? Because he is kind of, to me, like he founded Ave Maria with Tom Monahan, right? Radio. So how is Al doing?
Al's doing fantastically, thanks be to God. We had a very interesting challenge with Al. Many people may remember back when we first started. It actually happened just months after I first began where I started in November, as I mentioned, of 2002. And in January of 2003, Al was diagnosed with the flesh-eating bacteria. And it literally came out of nowhere. He wasn't feeling so well. And he noticed that his leg was getting discolored. And they rushed him to the hospital and literally told him, your leg or your life. And it was just an incredibly odd experience, but obviously they had to amputate his leg and he was off the air for a good 2 to 3 months. And I'll never forget, I was just so upset. I was worried about him, obviously, most importantly, but then they came to me and they said, okay, we need you to fill in. So I was doing my show and I was doing Crest in the afternoon. And then bless his heart, Nick Tom, Al's wonderful executive producer, a Steubenville grad, and he did a wonderful job and helped both of us fill in. He recently passed away, bless his heart, of cancer. just an amazing witness. But he and I filled in for several months. And I think about that. And I think about how God used my secular media experience in terms of training me to be able to handle things on the fly, things that are thrown at you. When you're a live street reporter 5 days a week, when you're cranking out stories, if you're doing noon, 5, 6, and 11, or if you're on the radio, as I did for many years before making the transfer to TV, I was doing 8 newscasts in the morning, top of the hour, bottom of the hour, top of the hour, bottom of the hour. I was either in the studio writing and announcing those newscasts, or I was out in the street reporting every half an hour. So that training, that ability to think on your feet, that ability to look at a scene when you arrive and remember what you're looking at and have to turn it around right away and tell people about it. That was all training. See, I thought it was all about me. It was all about how wonderful I was going to be on the air and all my awards and all the money. But what God was doing is training me for what I'm doing now. There is no way that I would be able to handle 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, a live show if I didn't have all that background. It's just been, God is so smart. You don't know why he's doing something in your life. And you look back, you go, oh, that's what you mean. And so it's interesting because Al had met me, as I mentioned earlier, when I was in the secular media. He saw a story that I did with Channel 7. We had a big warehouse fire, and St. Vincent de Paul was accepting all these different donations. And I actually ended up on all places of Oprah. The story I did opened up an Oprah show one day. And Al saw it and was very impressed, and we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. But Al's doing great. The story of his involvement and where we're at now in terms of his great ministry, his speaking, his intellect, the books that he writes. He's the CEO of Ave Maria. He's a great boss. I always say, Al, you're my boss, but God is really my news director and my big boss. But yeah, it's a great place to work. I just love it.
Well, and then just take our people a little bit behind the scenes. I don't think they realize what does it take to be, on the radio, let's say for an hour, and you have to book guests, and you have to line up this, and you have to line up that. You do a lot of it, but then I know you have a wonderful producer, Andrew Kruchek. And what did they help do to kind of pull it all together?
Well, Andrew is responsible for scheduling the shows and also for pulling together the content. He works with me daily on that, and he's amazing. He finishes my sentences. We know each other very well. He knows the topics that I like to cover. And often, he'll say, okay, I got this person. I'll say, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about that. But he knows in what I'm interested in, the topics that are important. He also, in our program, he also helps me line up regular guests. For example, we have Father Frank Pavone on once a week in the first hour to talk about everything pro-life. And Father's been a staple on the show for years. So Andrew will work with him and say, okay, Father, what do you want to talk about? And then Father will send some ideas back and forth. We have Joan Lewis every Wednesday from Rome. She gives us our Rome update. We have frequent guests talking about marriage. You're on my show on a regular basis. So a producer's job is to understand the host's interests and physically line those up in terms of sending the emails, sending the contact information, and doing what we call in the business a rundown, a daily rundown. So the actual show lineup, who's coming up when. And we have, for example, 8:15 every day, I do something called T's 2 cents, where I give an opinion on a topic and I elaborate on it for a few minutes. And then at 8:30, usually we have another whole interview. In the second hour, as I mentioned, and we always have news at the top of the hour. I do a full newscast for 15 minutes so people don't have to turn the station and listen to, heaven forbid, a CNN or an MSNBC, God forbid, to hear the news. So it's a lot of work, but we work together, and I'm constantly researching my topics. And because of my background in the media, it's very helpful because I'm already trained in research and investigations. So it's not as much of a burden as it might be for other people because God has trained me well in terms of research and background.
Right. Well, I have to say, on behalf of Father Frank Pavone and myself and my whole pastoral team, I know there's not one person here at Priest for Life you have never had on the program. You have really been very generous with having our full team. Brian Kemper, I know, has been on, Dr. Teresa Burke, Kevin
Anthony
Burke,
DiStefano, right.
All of them. Anthony DiStefano with his book. So I have to say, on behalf of our whole team here at Priest for Life, a big, big thank you to Ave Maria Radio for always giving us the opportunity to let our ministry shine. And I want to ask everyone now to congratulate Ave Maria Radio on 25 years by going to their website, avemaria.net. And why don't you make a congratulatory donation today? It's 25th anniversary, so maybe you can make a $25 donation. Maybe $250 still has the number 25 in it, or maybe 2,500. See what God's
Or
putting on.
25,000 or 250,000 or 2.5 million. Why not? Who knows, right?
Right, but they have to realize, just like EWTN, what Mother Angelica used to say, just like the work of Priests for Life, we're here because of our donations, because
Right.
of the people who are supporting us. We're not getting, support from the church. We have to raise our own
Advertisers,
support.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask everyone, please give a congratulations on the Silver Jubilee, 25 wonderful, fantastic years. May God bless you with 25 more. Tell Al, go to AveMariaRadio.net and make a donation to congratulate them. The best way to congratulate them was to send them a little bit of help right
Thank you.
now.
And Jan, if
Keep coming
anybody's
to
in
you.
town at the end of August, we're having this wonderful family celebration, which is going to be a blast. Everyone's invited. You don't have to be from Michigan. We've got a lot of people coming from out of state, all kinds of great events, including, as I mentioned, the Dunk the Deacon Tank. We have a dinner under the stars. It's going to be great. So check it out, AveMariaRadio.net, family celebration as well.
Okay, well, Teresa, thank you for joining me again on Just Ask Janet. And again, congratulations on a
Thank you.
great milestone.
Thanks.
Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you too for joining me on Just Ask Janet. Until next time, God bless.